How's it going, trainers? You ready for an awesome, exciting Tuesday? We're gonna start off in the lab. Okay, so I know I have a lab coat, but I want you guys, if you want to get into something that can get a little bit messy, we are going to create muck today. We're actually going to talk about a science term called oobleck. So you might know kind of the states of matter. We have solid, which is something you can physically touch in your hands, that has a definite volume, and is something where the particles are all really close together. Now this one can get bent around. Another solid like glass, I can't bend it, it's got a definite shape. Some solids have shape, some don't, but they always have the same volume and roughly the same density. But then we have our second state of matter, which is liquid. So that would be, the most obvious would be, of course, our water. So that's, water, it could be milk, it could be lots of other things where it doesn't have a definite shape. Whatever I put it in, it's going to take the shape of that. Versus if I put, let's say, if you have a kidney lying around, you don't have a kidney lying around, a kidney, it's not going to change its shape if I put it into a different container. It's pretty much the same. Now things like Play-Doh and clay can be molded around, but if I just set it there, it's gonna have a shape, right? If I set even like this is a little piece of tinfoil, I can crumple it and all, but if I keep it in my hand, it has the same shape. It's the same thing. So that's our solid and our liquid, and of course gas. Can't really visualize gas. I can blow up a balloon and that's gas, right? And that's the things, you can feel it if you move around a lot, wind, but you can't really feel because gas can take up, a very tiny space to a really, really large space. So I can get a balloon and, put an amount of gas in it. If I put it in the freezer, it'll actually shrink. And if I put it where it's hot, it'll expand. If you think about if you've ever seen your parents filling up tires in the wintertime, it's because when they're cold, the gas particles, and they kind of move together. So those are our three states of matter. And there's plasma, things like lightning or neon signs, which is like a charged gas, which is really, really cool. But, have you ever seen a Frosty? There are things that are in between that are like, it's not really a liquid, not really a solid, not really this, not really this. And that's what we're going to create today. It's kind of like what I imagine muck to be, that it's a solid, but then it moves and flows like a liquid. So we're going to create some muck today. So what I want you guys to do, now your container is going to look a little different than mine. Excuse me. But you have a container that says cornstarch. So I want you, again, get something that you don't mind to getting a little messy, and you want to do this in the kitchen because it gets messy. If you have jewelry, I'm taking my jewelry off because it's going to get messy. So I want you to get some cornstarch and then a bowl or something. You can do something large if you want. But, and this, if you want to keep playing around with this, cornstarch is really cheap and it's really easy to get. And if you feel it, it's a solid, it's powdery, but it's a solid. And then we're going to add liquid to it, and it's going to create oobleck, which is in between. It's a solid sometimes and it's a liquid other times, which is really, really cool. So what I want you to do is get your container. I'm in the lab, so I'm going to use a beaker, and I'm just going to add some cornstarch. Don't worry about measuring, just add, not the whole thing, but just add some. And mine's not coming out, so hold on. Let me try to add a little bit more. Okay, so I got a little bit of this, and then what I'm going to add is a little bit of water. Don't add a ton, just a little bit at a time, and you can always add more. So, and if you add too much water, you can add more cornstarch. So you can see here, I added maybe a little bit too much water, so I'm gonna get my fingers, I said it was gross, and you're gonna get in there, and you're just gonna work it in, work that water, get that cornstarch, especially if you put a lot of cornstarch in there, it'll stay dry at the bottom, so you want it all get incorporated. I have a little bit too much, see how runny it is? So I can fix that by, it's messy, add a little more cornstarch. And then again, I gotta incorporate it or mix it all around. So I'm gonna just move it around in there. I wanna get it so that it's not really solid, but I wanna get it to, there's lots of different types of oobleck. And again, if I added too much cornstarch, I can always add a little bit more water. And I might need to, so this is, I wanna show you, this is a little too dry because it's just kind of clumpy. I'm gonna add just a little bit of water. I want it in between those two states, right? So add just a little bit. and try moving that around. A little bit of water goes a very, very long way, and you can experiment and find if you want more runny oobleck, if you want a more solid oobleck, that is fine. I think I have a pretty good consistency. So if you can see, it's kind of like this. It's solid if I touch it, but the cool thing is, put this, once you get it to that consistency, it's a little bit hard to show on the camera, and I can't touch the camera now because, I'm gross. But if you put it in your hand, it kind of melts and it runs, which is really cool. So it's a liquid, but then if I go and I move it, it's a solid. I didn't exchange it, I just moved my hand around. So if I get it and then it's gonna liquefy again in my hand and move kind of like what a muck does. And then if I, sorry, I'm out of focus a little bit there. If I get it and then it's again, actually I'm not gonna, let me get 1 second, I don't wanna make a mess. So if I get it and look, it'll drip, kind of like Play-Doh, but, and if I look in here, it kind of looks solidy or liquidy. Now the cool thing is if you get a little bit more watery than this, so if you punch down into it, it's a solid. If you apply any amount of force to oobleck, it becomes a solid, it solidifies. But if you slowly put your hands inside of it, it's a liquid, which is really, really cool. The fact, and it's, I know I'm showing you this on video, but when you guys get to do this, I mean, if you want to do it at the same time or later, but it is just such a cool feeling, and it's a great stress relief. Don't do this in your living room, and don't do this where it's gonna make a mess on like any kind of fabric because it'll stick to everything. If you get it on something that you like, it's cornstarch, it'll wash out. So don't worry, it's just cornstarch and water. And this is totally fine to do bare hands. If you want to wear gloves, that's fine too. I'm gonna add just a little more water to see if I can get a little bit of the runnier oobleck. Again, a little goes a long way, so I added just a little bit. And I gotta mix it around again. So this is a lot runnier, right? But again, now this is a little too runny, but if you want a little bit of that like kind of goopy drizzle, and try putting it on your kitchen table. Again, something linoleum. I don't know if I would do this on wood because it will make a mess, it cleans up. But you can play around with it and it's just such a cool texture. Now if you put this inside of a balloon, it's a great stress relief. It's hard to get it in the balloon, but if you have a funnel or something, but it is ooey gooey and awesome. But remember, just because I'm doing it in the lab, don't go putting your hands in any muck. Ugh.